Before we dive in, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming mysteries. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from tonight? You might be surprised how many of us are connected in this exact same moment, listening to the same story. Now imagine this. 19 men step into an elevator for their morning shift at a Pennsylvania coal mine. Their lunchboxes are packed. Their gear is ready. It's a routine they've done thousands of times before. But this time, none of them come back. No accident report. No bodies. Just silence. For 37 years, families asked one question. What really happened in the Black Rock mine? December 15th, 1988, started like any other winter morning in Black Rock, Pennsylvania. The air was sharp with frost. Car engines grumbled reluctantly to life, and families in this small mining town went about their rituals as they had done for generations. At the center of it all was the Black Rock mine, a place that had provided steady work and steady pay for nearly 4 decades. Fathers worked there, their sons worked there, and in some cases, their grandfathers had done the same before them. The mine was more than just an employer. It was the heartbeat of the community. That morning, 19 men arrived for their shift at 6 a.m. sharp. They were seasoned miners, men who knew every tunnel, every seam, every safety procedure drilled into them over the years. Some had been underground for more than 20 years. They carried their gear as usual. Hard hats with their names scrawled on the front, well-worn mining tools, oxygen tanks, and their lunchboxes packed by wives or daughters the night before. These were ordinary men on what should have been an ordinary day. At 6:30 a.m., their elevator descended smoothly to the 800-foot level, the same shaft they had traveled thousands of times. Foreman Jack Morrison, known for his calm and by-the-book attitude, gave the standard check-in over the radio. All clear to surface control, following standard safety protocols. It was the last confirmed communication anyone ever heard from the 19 men. 2 hours later, at 8:30, the surface crew expected the next routine call, but the radio stayed quiet. The operator called again. Then again, each time more urgent. He switched frequencies, even tried the emergency channel. Silence. He called out each miner's name individually, his voice echoing across static-filled speakers. No response. At first, no one panicked. Technical glitches happened. Radio sometimes cut out underground. But when repeated calls failed and minutes stretched into an hour, unease crept in. Supervisor Mike Chen, a 20-year veteran, decided to ride the elevator down himself. He knew the men. He had worked alongside them. They weren't the kind to play games or wander off. At 9:15 a.m., Chen stepped off the elevator at the 800-foot level and froze. The tunnels were eerily silent, far too quiet for a work shift in progress. The machinery hummed softly, conveyor belts rattled, ventilation systems droned. Everything was running, but the men who should have been operating them were gone. Hard hats lay scattered where they had been removed. Lunchboxes sat unopened, resting exactly where the miners had placed them before starting work. Oxygen tanks remained unused, gauges showing full pressure. Tools lay in neat piles beside half-completed tasks, as if the men had simply set them down and walked away. The strangest detail was the footprints. In the dust of the tunnel floors, Chen found clear tracks from all 19 miners. He could identify the distinctive tread patterns, even the weight of each man pressed into the ground. All of the footprints led in a straight line to the elevator shaft. They were calm, deliberate steps, not running, not scrambling in panic. But when they reached the edge of the shaft, the prints simply stopped. There were no marks of waiting for the elevator, no indication the men had gone anywhere else. It was as if the miners had stepped into thin air. Chen's voice shook as he radioed back to surface. They're gone. All of them. The gear is here, the equipment's still on, but the men aren't here. Within the hour, 50 rescue workers were swarming the tunnels. Bloodhounds were brought in, only to whimper, refuse to proceed, and pull back from certain dark corridors as if terrified by something unseen. Thermal imaging devices picked up no heat signatures. Sensitive microphones detected no faint cries for help. Every inch of the level was searched, every shaft, every chamber. Nothing. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed the men whole. The families gathered above ground, waiting in the cold December air, desperate for news. Hours turned into a day, then two. The search stretched on relentlessly, but hope began to fade. Reporters arrived, sensing a story. They expected a cave-in, an explosion, a gas leak, but there was nothing. No signs of disaster. No evidence of a struggle. Then came the men in suits. They didn't carry mining helmets or rescue gear. They carried briefcases. They flashed badges from an agency none of the locals had ever heard of, the Department of Mining Safety. They were sharp, well-groomed, and coldly efficient. They asked detailed questions about the mine's construction, its history, its deepest shafts. But not once did they ask about the missing men or how to find them. By the end of the week, the mine was declared a hazardous site and shut down. Concrete barriers were erected, reinforced with steel, and the elevator itself was sealed permanently with thickness and cost far beyond any normal safety closure. Local police were ordered to arrest anyone attempting to enter. The press was told the incident was resolved, though no explanation was given. And to the families, offers of settlement money arrived, large sums in exchange for signing papers promising silence. Most of the grieving wives and children accepted, broken by loss and desperate for survival. But 3 families refused. One of them was Sarah Morrison, Jack's widow. She had been 29 when her husband vanished, left to raise 2 children alone. Sarah was stubborn, fearless, and determined to know what happened. Alongside 2 other families, she hired a private investigator, Robert Hayes, a former detective known for solving cold missing persons cases. Hayes dug deep. He interviewed miners off the record, promising anonymity. Some whispered of strange noises in the tunnels weeks before the disappearance, unnatural mechanical sounds when no one was scheduled to be working. Others recalled seeing unfamiliar trucks at the mine late at night. Still others mentioned new passages carved secretly by workers they didn't recognize, men who weren't part of the usual crews. Through contacts in law enforcement, Hayes secured copies of the mine's financial records. What he found was staggering. Massive payments from a government contractor labeled Special Excavation Services. The money was 10 times more than the mine's coal revenue, and the payments had started just 3 months before the 19 miners disappeared. The pieces began to fall into place. The mine wasn't just a mine. It was the site of something far bigger, far darker. Hayes uncovered leaked documents referencing a classified military project, Operation Deep Dig. It described extraction of radioactive materials buried deep underground during the 1950s, when the U.S. had secretly dumped nuclear waste beneath remote areas. The Black Rock mine had been built directly on top of one of those sites. For 36 years, men had unknowingly dug near toxic ground, while their families above suffered strange illnesses, unexplained cancers, and birth defects that no doctor dared connect to the mine. The 19 miners had stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to see. Hayes learned that on the morning of December 15th, after their routine radio call, they had discovered evidence of the classified excavation. Security cameras conveniently malfunctioned minutes later. Witnesses claimed the men confronted government operatives working underground. They were offered bribes, high-paying jobs if they stayed silent. They refused, insisting they would go public. By noon, they were in custody. Their disappearance was staged. Their gear left behind. Their footprints fabricated by cleanup crews. By January, the mine was closed for good. The official story, geological instability. Years passed. Families aged. Children grew up without fathers. Sarah Morrison never gave up, but doors slammed shut wherever she turned. Records vanished. Reporters backed off. The story faded from headlines. Black Rock became just another town with a wound it wasn't allowed to name. Then, in 2024, everything changed. The government's lease on the property expired, and the land was sold to a development company planning to build new homes. Environmental surveys were routine, but what surveyors found was anything but. Their ground-penetrating radar revealed an enormous slab of reinforced concrete, far thicker than necessary for any standard mine closure. Hidden beneath, it was the sealed elevator. When the discovery hit public record, the past came roaring back. Questions resurfaced. Why was the elevator sealed at such cost? Why were no official records of the closure filed? And why, within days, did federal agencies swarm the site, each demanding jurisdiction? The Department of Energy warned of radiation hazards. Homeland Security raised vague national security concerns. The EPA cited potential contamination, yet none could produce evidence. The development company fought back, taking the matter to court. Public suspicion exploded. News outlets rediscovered the old case. Podcasts dissected every detail. Social media lit up with theories. For the first time in decades, families of the miners spoke publicly. Sarah Morrison, now 82, broke her silence about the hush money and the non-disclosure agreements. The truth was clawing its way back to the surface. In November 2024, a federal judge ruled decisively. The elevator must be opened under full transparency. Independent inspectors, journalists, and the families themselves will be present. The date was set, December 15th, 2024, 36 years to the day. That morning, under gray winter skies, crowds gathered at the mine. Media crews broadcast live. Aging widows and children, now grown, stood bundled in coats, clutching photographs of men lost so long ago. Cutting crews began at 9 a.m., sparks flying as industrial diamond saws tore into 3-foot-thick slab of concrete. Hours passed, each minute stretching with unbearable tension. Finally, at 1 p.m., the barrier gave way. Lights were lowered into the shaft. Cameras followed. What they saw shocked everyone. The elevator car was intact, resting just below the surface. Inside were the personal belongings of the missing miners. Hard hats with names still legible, lunchboxes rusted shut, tools lying where they had been placed. But that wasn't all. Piled in one corner were boxes stamped top secret. Dozens of files, still intact, alongside military equipment and scientific instruments. The elevator had been used as a vault, a hiding place for evidence the government never intended anyone to find. The documents inside revealed everything. Operation Deep Dig was real. The government had deliberately buried nuclear waste under black rock, then used the mine as cover to retrieve it secretly. For decades, they had studied the effects of radiation on the unsuspecting community, tracking cancers, birth defects, and genetic mutations in a grotesque human experiment. Local doctors, teachers, even clergy had been quietly paid to provide data while keeping families in the dark. And among the files was the most damning evidence of all, an official elimination order signed December 15, 1988. It authorized the execution of all 19 miners, citing unacceptable security risk. Detailed instructions described how to dispose of the bodies in a Nevada desert burial site. Another report, dated January 1989, confirmed the operation was complete. The men had been silenced forever. Forensic teams followed the document's coordinates and unearthed a mass grave in Nevada. Remains of the 19 miners were found exactly what files said. Personal items confirmed their identities. Ballistics matched government-issued weapons. After 37 years, the truth was undeniable. These men were executed by their own government. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Congressional hearings began within weeks. Survivors testified, their voices breaking as they recounted decades of silence and betrayal. Sarah Morrison, clutching a letter her husband Jack had written the morning he vanished, brought the chamber to silence. If you're reading this, Jack had written, it means we tried and failed. Don't let them bury the truth with us. Criminal charges were filed against dozens of officials. International human rights groups compared the crimes to Nazi experiments. Protests erupted across America. Billions were allocated to treat affected communities, and the nation's trust in its government fractured in ways not seen in generations. At last, in 2025, the miners were buried properly. Funerals were held, flags draped over coffins, entire towns lining the streets in mourning. The men were honored as heroes who died not in a mine accident, but in the fight to reveal a truth their government wanted hidden forever. Sarah Morrison, now frail but unbroken, stood at the memorial where the elevator once sealed their fate. She held Jack's final letter as her voice trembled. They died as heroes, and now the world knows. The 19 miners of Black Rock had finally come home, And their story, once buried under concrete and lies, will haunt America forever. And that's the story of the 19 miners who vanished into Black Rock Mine in 1988. Men who were silenced for discovering the truth, only for that truth to finally resurface nearly 4 decades later. Their families waited 37 years for answers. Tonight, you know the story they were never supposed to tell. If this case left you shaken, make sure to hit that like button. It helps us keep bringing you the darkest, most hidden mysteries from around the world. Share this video with a friend who loves true crime as much as you do. And don't forget to subscribe with the bell on so you never miss the next case we uncover. Because as we've seen tonight, no matter how deep you bury the truth, it always finds its way back.